Rain hammered against the stained glass windows of Whitmore Manor as Marcus Hale sat silently at the far end of the long dining-room table. The funeral had ended only an hour ago, but the cold heaviness inside the house felt worse than the storm outside. The scent of lilies from Grandma Eleanor's memorial still clung to the air, mixing with the bitterness of expensive perfume and fake grief. Marcus loosened the black tie around his neck and stared down at his folded hands. He was exhausted. For 2 years he had cared for Grandma Eleanor, while the rest of the family disappeared unless they needed money. He cooked her meals, carried her medicine upstairs, sat beside her through endless hospital visits, and listened to her stories late into the night when the pain kept her awake. But none of that seemed to matter now. Across the table Aunt Linda dabbed perfectly dry eyes with a tissue. "Mother always promised that necklace would stay in the family," she said dramatically. "It's worth at least $200,000. Uncle Richard crossed his arms. "We should inventory everything before the lawyer starts reading the will." Marcus sighed quietly. The woman hadn't even been buried for a full day, and already they were fighting over jewelry. Grandma's lawyer, Mr. Calloway, sat patiently beside a stack of sealed folders. His gray suit looked untouched by the rain outside. "Perhaps we should focus on honoring Eleanor's wishes first." "Oh, we will," Linda snapped, "but first someone needs to explain why her diamond necklace is missing." The room suddenly went still. Marcus looked up slowly. Missing? Linda's eyes locked onto him instantly. "It was in her bedroom yesterday." Cousin Vanessa leaned forward. And Marcus was the last person upstairs before everyone left for the cemetery. Marcus blinked in disbelief. "Are you serious?" Richard's expression hardened. Nobody else had access to her room. A knot formed in Marcus's stomach. "I went upstairs to get Grandma's photo album for the funeral slideshow. And maybe you grabbed something else while you were there," Vanessa muttered. Marcus stared at them, speechless. His own mother, Carol, avoided his eyes completely. That hurt the most. "You can't honestly think I stole from Grandma," Marcus said quietly. Linda laughed bitterly. "You quit your job to take care of her. Maybe you were planning this the entire time." Marcus pushed his chair back sharply. "I gave up my job because none of you would help," the room erupted. "Oh, please," Vanessa scoffed. "You just wanted to get close to her money." "That's enough," Marcus snapped. "No, Linda shouted louder. "What's enough is pretending you're some saint when you've probably been stealing from her for months." Marcus felt heat rising into his face. Every sleepless night beside Grandma's hospital bed flashed through his mind. Every birthday his family skipped. Every unanswered phone call when he begged them to visit her. And now this, "You abandoned her," he said, voice trembling. "Every single one of you." Richard slammed his palm against the table. "Watch your tone." "Or what?" Marcus shot back. "You'll accuse me of stealing something else." Before Richard could answer, Linda suddenly stood up and pointed toward Marcus's jacket lying over the chair. "Check his pockets," Marcus froze. Vanessa grabbed the coat before he could react and searched through it dramatically. Pens, wallet, keys, then her hand stopped. The room fell silent as she slowly pulled out a small velvet jewelry box. Marcus's blood turned cold. "What?" he whispered. Linda snatched the box and opened it. Inside rested Grandma Eleanor's diamond necklace. Gasps filled the room. "Oh my God," Carol whispered. "I knew it," Linda said triumphantly. "I knew he took it." Marcus stood frozen, unable to breathe. "I didn't put that there." "Then how did it end up in your pocket?" Richard barked. "I don't know." Vanessa shook her head with disgust. "Grandma trusted you." The words cut deeper than any knife. Marcus looked desperately toward his mother. "Mom, you know I wouldn't do this." But Carol lowered her eyes. "I don't know what to believe any more." That sentence shattered him. Mr. Calloway finally rose from his chair. Unlike the others, his expression remained calm. "Before this goes any further," the lawyer said carefully, "there is something Eleanor instructed me to do if accusations were ever made during the will reading." Linda frowned. "What are you talking about?" Without answering, Mr. Calloway reached into his briefcase and removed a small black flash drive. Marcus stared at it, confused. The lawyer walked slowly toward the television mounted on the wall. "Your grandmother," he said quietly, anticipated tonight perfectly. The room fell silent except for the pounding rain outside. Marcus stood frozen beside the table while Aunt Linda clutched the diamond necklace like a trophy. The accusation still echoed in his ears. Thief, liar, betrayer. After everything he had done for Grandma Eleanor, his own family looked at him with disgust. Mr. Calloway inserted the flash drive into the television. "What exactly is this?" Uncle Richard asked impatiently. The lawyer adjusted his glasses. "A private recording Eleanor instructed me to play if conflict broke out during the will reading." Linda crossed her arms. "Well, I think we already know all we need to know." Mr. Calloway ignored her and pressed play. The television screen flickered. A moment later, Grandma Eleanor appeared sitting in her favorite chair beside the fireplace upstairs. She looked weak, wrapped in a cream-colored blanket, but her sharp gray eyes still carried the same strength Marcus remembered. For the first time all evening, Marcus felt tears sting his eyes. "Hello, my dear family," Grandma said softly on the screen. "If you are watching this, then I suspect exactly what I feared has happened." Nobody moved. Grandma sighed gently. "First, Marcus, sweetheart, if they are blaming you for something, I need you to listen carefully. You did nothing wrong." Marcus swallowed hard. Linda shifted uncomfortably. Grandma continued, "You stayed beside me when everyone else became too busy. You gave up your apartment, your career, and years of your life to care for me. I will never forget that." Marcus lowered his head, emotion tightening his chest. Vanessa rolled her eyes. "Oh, please, quiet, mister." Calloway snapped firmly. The room went still again. Grandma leaned slightly closer to the camera. "Now, regarding my diamond necklace, I knew someone would try to steal it." Linda's face lost color instantly. Richard frowned. "What?" A faint smile crossed Grandma's lips. "That is why I installed security cameras throughout the house 3 months ago." The entire room exploded with shocked murmurs. "You recorded us?" Vanessa blurted out. "Indeed," Grandma replied calmly. "Especially after certain family members started visiting only to ask about my will." Marcus slowly looked around the room. Panic had begun spreading across their faces. Grandma nodded towards someone behind the camera. "Arthur, please show them the footage." The television switched to black and white security video footage with a timestamp from the previous evening, the night before the funeral. The camera showed Grandma's upstairs hallway. Marcus watched carefully as Linda quietly slipped into Grandma's bedroom, looking over her shoulder before closing the door behind her. The room fell deathly silent. 30 seconds later, Linda reappeared holding the exact velvet jewelry box, now sitting on the dining table. "Oh my God," Carol whispered. Linda's face turned pale. "This is ridiculous." But the footage continued. Everyone watched as Linda walked downstairs, entered the hallway closet near the dining room, and carefully slipped the jewelry box into Marcus's coat pocket while nobody else was around. Marcus felt like the air had been punched out of his lungs. Vanessa stared at her mother in horror. "Mom, it's edited," Linda shouted suddenly. "This is fake." Mr. Calloway folded his arms. "The footage has already been verified legally." Richard looked at his sister with disgust. "You planted it on him." Linda's voice cracked. I just panicked. Mother promised that necklace to me years ago." "No," Grandma's voice interrupted from the television. "I promised it to the granddaughter who would earn it through kindness. Sadly, none of you qualified." Linda collapsed back into her chair. Marcus could barely process what was happening. Minutes ago, he had been completely alone. Now the truth stood exposed in front of everyone. His mother slowly turned toward him, shame filling her eyes. "Marcus, I'm so sorry." But the apology came too late. Grandma's image softened on the screen as she looked directly into the camera again. "My family," she said quietly, "money reveals character faster than hardship ever will." Nobody spoke. Then Grandma smiled gently. "However, this necklace is the smallest surprise I left behind tonight. Mr. Calloway glanced toward the final sealed envelope on the table, and suddenly every greedy pair of eyes in the room locked onto it. Nobody spoke for several long seconds after the video ended. Rain continued tapping against the windows, but inside the dining room the silence felt heavier than thunder. Aunt Linda sat pale and trembling in her chair, while Uncle Richard stared at her with open disgust. Vanessa looked completely shattered, unable to believe her own mother had framed Marcus so easily. Marcus himself still felt numb. Part of him wanted to walk out of the mansion and never see any of them again, but another part of him, the part Grandma Eleanor had helped build, needed to stay. Mr. Calloway slowly removed the flash drive from the television and returned to the table. "Well," he said calmly, "shall we continue with Eleanor's final wishes?" Linda wiped her eyes angrily. "Mother manipulated all of us." "No," Marcus said quietly, "she exposed you." Linda glared at him but said nothing. Mr. Calloway opened the large sealed envelope in front of him. The sound of tearing paper echoed through the room. Eleanor Whitmore's final will and testament. He began formally, "To my daughter Carol, I leave $50,000. Carol looked surprised but ashamed at the same time. "To my son Richard, I leave $10,000. Richard's face darkened instantly. "10,000, that's it, Mr. Calloway continued reading without emotion. "To my granddaughter Vanessa, I leave my pearl earrings and family photographs." Vanessa blinked in confusion. "Wait, what about the investment accounts?" Linda leaned forward impatiently. "And to my daughter Linda, Mr. Calloway said carefully, "I leave the diamond necklace she valued so deeply on the condition she repays Marcus Hale for emotional damages caused by her false accusations." Linda shot to her feet. "This is insane. There's more," the lawyer replied. The room fell silent again. Mr. Calloway adjusted the papers. "The remainder of Eleanor Whitmore's estate, including Whitmore Manor, her savings accounts, stocks, and property holdings, is left entirely to her grandson, Marcus Hale." The words slammed into the room like an explosion. "What?" Richard shouted. Linda's mouth fell open in disbelief. Vanessa stared at Marcus. "You inherited everything?" Marcus himself looked stunned. I didn't know, Mr. Calloway nodded. "The estate's estimated value is just over $8 million. Linda nearly collapsed back into her chair. "That's impossible," Richard barked. "Mother would never leave him all of it." Mr. Calloway calmly slid another handwritten letter across the table. "She anticipated objections," he said. Marcus slowly unfolded the letter. The moment he recognized Grandma's handwriting, his chest tightened. "My dear Marcus, if you are reading this, then I am gone, and the family is likely fighting exactly as I feared. I know this responsibility will feel heavy, but you earned it long before this night. You loved me when there was nothing to gain. That matters more than blood." Tears blurred Marcus's vision. Across the room, Linda scoffed bitterly. "He manipulated her. He isolated her from the family." Marcus looked up sharply. "You visited her twice in 2 years. That's not true, Mr. Calloway opened another folder. Actually, Eleanor kept records of every visit, phone call, and financial request made by family members during her illness. Richard looked nervous now. The lawyer continued. "Linda visited 3 times. Richard visited once for 11 minutes. Vanessa never visited at all." Vanessa's face flushed red with embarrassment. "And Marcus?" Carol asked quietly. Mr. Calloway looked toward him. "Marcus Hale spent 742 days caring for Eleanor almost full-time." The room became painfully quiet. Marcus remembered every one of those days, the medications, the sleepless nights, helping Grandma walk through the garden after chemotherapy, listening to old jazz records together when she couldn't sleep. He never imagined she had been keeping track. Carol suddenly began crying softly. "I failed both of you." Marcus didn't answer. Linda slammed her hand against the table. "Mother turned him against us." "No," Marcus said firmly. "You did that yourselves." For once nobody argued back. Mr. Calloway handed Marcus a small silver key. "Your grandmother also left you access to a private room upstairs," he explained. "She instructed that only you may enter it." Marcus stared at the key in his palm. "One final gift," the lawyer said gently. As Marcus closed his fingers around it, he realized something important. Grandma's inheritance was never really about money. It was about the truth, and tonight the truth had destroyed the family's lies forever. 3 weeks after the will reading, Whitmore Manor felt completely different. For the first time in years, the house was peaceful. Marcus stood near the kitchen window early one morning, watching sunlight spill across Grandma Eleanor's rose garden. The heavy storm from the night of the funeral was gone, replaced by warm spring air drifting through the open windows. The silence no longer felt lonely. It felt healing. He carried a cup of coffee upstairs and stopped outside the private room Grandma had left only to him. The silver key still felt strange in his hand, even after opening the room several times over the past weeks. Inside, the room remained exactly how Grandma had arranged it. Shelves filled with journals lined the walls. Old family photographs covered a wooden desk beside the window. In one corner stood a small record player with stacks of jazz albums they used to listen to together late at night. Marcus smiled softly. At the center of the desk rested Grandma's final handwritten note. Revenge without cruelty is the victory of a peaceful heart. At first, Marcus hadn't understood those words. Now he finally did. A knock at the front door interrupted his thoughts. Marcus walked downstairs slowly and opened the door to find Aunt Linda standing outside. But she looked nothing like the proud, perfectly dressed woman from the will reading. Her expensive clothes were wrinkled. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. "Marcus," she said quietly, "can we talk?" He hesitated before stepping aside. Linda entered awkwardly, staring around the mansion she once believed would belong to her. "I heard Richard lost his business," Marcus said calmly. Linda nodded bitterly. Tax fraud investigation. And Vanessa, she moved out of state. Silence settled between them. Finally, Linda lowered her eyes. "I came to apologize." Marcus studied her face carefully. For the first time in his life, she looked small. "I treated you horribly," she admitted. "Your grandmother saw that before any of us did." Marcus said nothing. Tears slowly formed in Linda's eyes. "I was jealous of you." That surprised him. She loved you differently, Linda whispered. "Not because you were perfect, but because you actually loved her back." The anger Marcus carried for years suddenly felt tired. "Not gone, just tired. I'm not giving you money," he said gently. Linda gave a weak laugh through her tears. "I know, and I won't forget what happened. You shouldn't." For a long moment neither of them spoke. Then Marcus walked to the kitchen drawer and pulled out a small envelope. Linda frowned. "What's this?" Grandma left instructions for monthly donations to the local senior center. Marcus explained. "I transferred the payments into your name." Linda looked confused. "Why?" "Because she believed people could change." Linda's lips trembled. "You framed me," Marcus continued quietly, "but carrying hate forever would only destroy me too." Linda finally broke down crying. Before leaving, she paused near the front door. "Your grandmother would be proud of you." After she left, Marcus stood alone in the quiet hallway. For the first time, the mansion no longer felt like a battlefield. It felt like home. Months later, Whitmore Manor reopened under a new name, Eleanor House Community Center. The large estate that once represented greed and betrayal became a place where elderly people received free meals, companionship, medical support, and music nights every weekend. Exactly what Grandma always dreamed about. On opening day, Marcus stood in the garden watching volunteers help visitors through the front gates. Laughter filled the air where arguments once lived. Mr. Calloway approached him with a proud smile. "You turned pain into something beautiful." Marcus looked toward Grandma's favorite rose bushes blooming beside the porch. "She taught me how," he replied softly. That evening, as the sun disappeared behind the hills, Marcus sat alone on the porch steps with Grandma's old journal resting in his lap. For years, his family believed revenge meant humiliation, power, or revenge through suffering. But Grandma had taught him something far greater. The sweetest revenge was building a peaceful life without the people who tried to destroy you. And at last, Marcus was finally free.